Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. We're Nomsiv. This is Sharon Oyella, and today we're going to be making walnut garland that light up. And this came about from my recent work with string lights and acorns. I made acorn lanterns with the same sort of idea. I'll put that link in the pinned comment below. But with that idea in mind and wanting to use walnuts for the tree, and here we are. I mean, it's such a simple thing. And I cannot wait till next year. I'm going to make a huge long string of these. This one is just a short string, but they turned out absolutely beautiful. We're also going to be making a gift box for them as well. So if you wanted to give them as a gift to somebody, I think it's a lovely idea. So remember, there are detailed timestamps in the pinned comment below. I'm going to give you two methods of opening the walnuts without cracking the shells. So the first method, we're going to use a Dremel. The second method, we're going to use water. Alright guys, let's get started. I get my walnuts from Walmart, and to crack the walnuts, like I said, there's two methods. One is water, or you can use this little saw bit here that comes with a Dremel. And to make the holes, you need a drill bit, a small one. And I also use the sanding block. The sanding block isn't necessary. You'll see that later in the video. You'll need lights, of course. I get mine at the dollar store. You want a thin wire light. So I had chosen a couple of different lights. One was this red star light, which I wanted the red glow from. But once I got them home, I realized that the wires are too thick. I could have made them work, but I didn't want to have to make a huge hole in the walnut for those wires. So what I did was I just pulled the plastic parts off, and then I used those on my thinner string, and that worked great. You can also get a red glow from painting your bulbs, or you can use tissue paper on the inside of the walnut. I use tacky glue to close the walnuts back up. You can use any glue of your choice, of course, and then you'll want some sort of decoration for the strings once you're done putting all the walnuts on the strings. Alright guys, let's get started. We're going to crack the walnuts without cracking the shells. Before we begin, just letting you know that this is actually an edited version of my video. I just put the video up. I had to take it down to include a disclaimer that there is a risk of cutting yourself using a Dremel or any tool, right? I heard that somebody did cut themselves using a tool similar to the Dremel, trying to cut a walnut open. I don't know which tool they were using, but it was similar to the Dremel. And of course, that's the last thing that we want to happen, is to have anybody hurt themselves, especially, making Christmas crafts. I feel safe enough holding the walnut between my finger and my thumb because the walnut is larger. If you remember one of my latest videos, I cut open an acorn and I held on to the acorn using pliers, and I was able to use that and the Dremel, and it was totally safe. I just tried this same method with the walnut, but I don't have enough control of the walnut inside the pliers. So my recommendation is, if you have a tabletop vise that you can stick your walnut into, a vise is a big heavy thing that you can close items up in. You have a crank and then you close it up. Then you could use a Dremel that way. Okay, again, I feel safe enough because I have full control holding onto that walnut with my finger and my thumb. But again, you're going to do this at your own risk. If you're feeling nervous of using the Dremel, then don't use it. Wait, I'm going to show you the second method of cutting open the walnut without using any tools at all. We're going to use water. Okay, so you have that option. You don't have to use the Dremel. You can use water instead. All right, my friends, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Before we begin, I'm going to set my walnut on a silicone mat. This is one of those dollar store hot glue gun mats that will keep my walnut from sliding around. I'm going to turn my Dremel on to 1. I'm going to start in the fat end of the walnut where there's that skin, a softer skin in between the two shells. Start there and work my way around. And I'm following the natural seam of the walnut. And in certain areas, I'm just going to go a little slower so I have full control of the Dremel at all times. You don't want to just go crazy in that seam. Just take your time and go back and forth if you have to. Certain parts of the walnut are going to be a little bit curved, so you just take your time going around that. You want to follow that seam. Once you get around once, it gets easier, because then you'll already have the road map in there. So again, I'm coming to a bit of a bend, so I'm just going to take my time. And I got a firm grip between my finger and my thumb on the walnut. So I'm right back at the fat end of the walnut now, and there's a bit of a gap in that end, and what's covering that gap is just a thin skin of the walnut. So that's why I like to start there. It makes it a little bit easier. And now I'm going into that road map that I just created. And I think I only had to go around twice. So that first time, and this is the second time around. And I know it can make you a little bit nervous using a saw like this, so if this is too much for you, then just wait for the second method and I'll show you how to do it with water, which is my favorite method. I prefer that over using the saw, not because I'm nervous, but because it gives a better seam, and I'll show you that in a minute. First, let's pop this open with a screwdriver and clean it out. Now, the only thing I don't like about cutting the walnuts open is the width of the blade leaves a permanent gap around the edge, or around where it's supposed to be sealed back in. So you can see that gap there. I'm going to show you one that I soaked to open, and I'll show you the difference. So see that it has a perfect seal all the way around. I just glued that back together. So the one that I just opened with the blade, it has that bit of a gap. But there's ways to fix that. You can fill it in with a thread. This one here has got golden thread in it. Or think of something else that you could wrap around there and fill in that gap. If you don't like it. I don't. You might not mind it. Anyway, so this is how I normally get walnuts open. I soak them. For this batch, I thought I'd just boil them for an hour first. So I had changed my mind in the middle there. So I decided to put them in a pot and stick them on the stove for an hour. And then I left them in that pot for 24 hours. And now you'll see that I got my butter knife in there, and you'll be able to feel it if it's going to crack open or not. If it's stuck too tight, you want to soak them longer. So that one took a little bit of effort, but a lot of them just kind of popped open, and you can feel it once you get your knife in there. So you go in through the fatter end, because there's a little bit of a skin there. You can pierce it with your knife. That one did not open, so I'm going to leave that one and soak it longer. And this one popped right open. So see that little bit of a skin there? I just shoved my knife in there. And that one I could feel, so I'm not going to force it, because if you force them, they will crack. There we go. That one just popped right open. So these ones here, I'm going to soak them for another 24 hours. But first I'm going to make sure that skin there in the fatter end is all pierced with the butter knife so the water can get in there. So this is 24 hours later, and you can see the water is kind of gunky now. So I'm just going to rinse these off and see how well they pop open. And that did the trick. Another night soaking, and they opened right up. Look at that, with love even. If you soak them, of course you want to clean them out, and you can dry them in the oven on the lowest temperature, or you can just leave them on a pan like this. Make sure your pairs are together, because they're like fingerprints. They have to have their pair to fit together. You can leave them overnight and let them dry that way. So these ones I left under a fan overnight, and they're nice and dry. So now I'm ready to start drilling the holes. I'm going to turn the Dremel on. Always turn the Dremel on before you touch the walnut. And now I'll drill the holes. But first, you can see under my nut there, I have a little piece of board, and that's going to save my tabletop from being pierced with the drill. So of course I just put in the holes randomly here and there, but you can see there I got two of them that were too close together, so I decided to mark off the next one with a red felt pen just to make it easier for me, because I couldn't really see. So I thought this would help, and it did. Oh, I have a little bit there I'm going to take off with my pliers. There we go. Now we can get back to drilling. So I got my red dots, and I'll just follow those red dots. That way I didn't get any more holes too close together. So once you have the holes into the walnut, now you have to make a space for the wire to come out the top. You can see perfect seal there. So I have to make a little indent using the sanding block. So I tilted the Dremel so the very tip of the block is just hitting the walnut there. It just makes a little line. These wires are very thin, so that's all I needed was just a little line sanded through, and there we go. The wire will fit. So anything thicker than the wire I'm using right now will require quite a bit more space being sanded in there, and I didn't want that. I don't want any big holes in the walnut. At the bottom there was a little bit of a hole there, so I'm going to fix that with a little piece of cardboard and tacky glue. I'm just going to stick it there and have the other end hanging over, so it'll go over that hole. So I'll just clamp that and hold that while I work on the wires here. So now I'm going to stick my wire into the plastic bit. So I decided to go with two lights per walnut. So I stuck the first light all the way down to the end. So I'm going to get that second light, just bend it over, and then I'll push that in. I turn the lights on so I know exactly where the lights are inside this little star thing. Now the only thing I would do different if I was to do these over again is I would add a bead of hot glue at the very end of that star where the wire is coming out of. That way the wire could never be pulled out. So I was thinking that these walnuts are so small and these are so snug in there, I wouldn't have to worry about that, but no, they can be pulled. So just keep that in mind. So tacky glue all the way around the edge, push them together, take off the excess glue, and then wrap either masking tape or rubber band to hold this tight together while the glue dries. And while that's drying, we can move on to the next set of lights. So for my string, I put a light in between each walnut. So I didn't have the walnuts so close together. So there's a light in between each walnut. And I found about a half an hour of dry time was enough. I could remove those rubber bands. And now I'm going to decorate the light string. And for mine, I doubled up some golden thread and I did small sections at a time. So I put a little hot glue at the end, stick the ends in there, and then just wrap this around the wire, and then hot glue on the other end. So once that was done, I decided to decorate the lights in between my walnuts, and I'm going to use this star anise, or anise, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyways, it makes great tea, and they smell amazing, and they're absolutely beautiful. So this is one I've already made tea out of, and I thought, I can't throw that out. I have to use it. So I decided to tie this ribbon onto the string, and then I'm going to hot glue my little star right in the center. That turned out awesome. I love the looks of that, and it smells amazing. Now this is something you probably want to do before you start decorating, is decide if you want to have a little bit of shine on your walnuts. I use Glitter Glam nail polish. Of course you can use glue and glitter, but if you want to do that, it might be easier to dress those up before you attach them to the string. Now for the rest of the string, I'm going to be using some thrift store decorations that I've torn apart, and these are going right over the lights in between my walnuts, so each one will have its own little light behind it. And I found if you lay the string out in front of you, everything is straight and the walnuts are hanging in the way you want them to hang, then you add your other pieces. That way you know that your decorations will be hanging the right direction when you pick the string up. So I'm going to wrap my battery pack with a piece of wrapping paper. Going to make a little like sleeve. That way you can pull the sleeve off and change the batteries in the future when you need to. And I already have my little golden thread loop on the end there. So I made the little loop when I hot glued the final piece in. I made sure to make that little loop so I can hang it off the tree. But check this out. How adorable is this? I absolutely love it. Oh my goodness. And next year I will think ahead of time and I'll have a longer string. And the other thought that came to me is if you drill the holes in the shapes of letters, you could also spell out Christmas or something. Anyway, guys, I am currently making a box, a custom-made box for this set. I've run out of time, so I can't put it in this video. Hopefully it'll be up before Christmas. For the meantime, I got this one at the dollar store. It's $1.75. It's got the see-through top, which I really like. I'm going to cover up the bottom with this fake fur, so it looks a little bit like a snowy scene inside there. And so when the other video is available, I will put that link in the pinned comment below. But for now, this will do. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to give that thumbs up, share with your friends. Thanks so much for watching, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone. Lots of love, and we'll see you in the next one.